How to sell a t-shirt online to anyone. That's quite a bold claim, right? But let's be really honest here. Actually, most e-commerce stores don't really do a particularly great job of really selling and showcasing the benefits of their products. And as part of this video, I thought the best way to really show that is let's look at a t-shirt. Let's look at something that everyone owns, something really basic. And let's look at all the potential objections and reasons why someone might not buy a t-shirt. And a little bit of research, what I did was I found 50 different things that will probably be going through our head when we're looking at a t-shirt. Now, it won't be the same 50 things for every single t-shirt, of course, but depending on the type of t-shirt you're planning on buying, when you're looking at an e-commerce store, there's going to be these potential objections and reasons that you might not buy. So this video, I'm not necessarily going to run through all 50. I might have them further down the page. We'll see how long this video ends up going, but we're definitely going to cover quite a few of them. And then the other thing that I'm going to do is I've got a couple of examples all loaded that we can then look at how they're selling the t-shirt. And then based on these kind of 50 objections that I've referenced, we can start to figure out what sites are doing this really well. So this is coming at it from very much a design and high conversion perspective. This is what it's all going to be about in this video. So let's get cracking. So the first one, most obvious one, let's start there, is price, obviously. Can I afford it? Or more importantly, is it worth that amount of money? That's going to be the first one that we need to really consider. And that's one that really is just controlled by you as a brand, as a company, right? You'll have to make that decision yourself. A little bit harder to get across, but what is the overall quality? What does the feel look like? Can I judge what the quality of this t-shirt is going to look like from there? So that is number 2, the overall quality. Number 3 is going to be fit. Now, from this point of view, is it going to be tight? Is it going to be baggy? This is where imagery becomes really, really important. And actually, everyone's style of clothing is going to be different. Some people do want it tight, some people don't. So discovering and being able to see the style of fit is going to be really, really key to some people. Next, we've got obvious things here like sizing. Does it come in my particular size? And not just a case of going small, medium, and large, but is there a size guide? Can I have a look at what these genuinely mean? How can I relate that to the size of my own body? So size is a really key one, can sometimes get overlooked. Obviously, small, medium, and large and stuff is fairly clear, but some people forget about the size guide. Now, brand reputation is another one to consider, right? Can I trust this brand? Do I like what they stand for? Do they make quality items? Do they not? Or the fact, a bit like H&M, I don't necessarily mind as much because it's a cheap product. You have to consider that as well. Now, the return policy is one that can be overlooked quite a lot. But if you're anything like my wife, who likes to order 20 things in one go and then send 19 of them back, then that's something we have to consider. So are we being really crystal clear with our return policy? If it's free returns, that's going to be attractive to people. Now, you obviously also have to weigh up how important that is from the other perspective, right, of a case of how many returns are we going to get. Tying in with that, we've obviously got shipping time. How quickly is it going to arrive? Now, unfortunately, we've all got into a world where we're kind of used to this Amazon approach of next day. So we need to make it crystal clear to them when that's going to be. As long as they're aware of when it's going to arrive, that's normally okay, but we need to really share that with them. Now, for some people, the environmental impact is going to be really important as well. Not every website will cover this, obviously, so we need to make a decision if that's what our brand really stands for. And if we are, we really need to highlight that out. You'll obviously see on this particular site, we don't really reference that sort of information. So we do need to consider that. Now, before we move on to kind of the next kind of 10 that I want to run through, I thought we'd have a little breakdown of H&M in general. So obviously we've got the price that kind of stands out. We've got an indication of what it is. And then we've got this imagery on the left-hand side. One thing I would say with this is I would almost like the imagery to what is called parallax. So if the imagery were to be parallaxing, what basically means is they move at different speeds, but it makes it look like one of the things is staying still. And in this case, for me anyway, a great way to increase conversions is to have this add to cart always on show. So if you could imagine if I was scrolling here and this left-hand imagery scrolled, but this right-hand side stayed static, then actually I can always get to the sizings really easily. I can always get to the add to the cart button really easily. The problem at the moment with this overall design is as I flick down here, and if we're honest, it can be a split-second decision if I'm going to buy it. If I'm like, yeah, this looks good, I don't have that split-second decision. I have to now scroll back up, find it, kind of think where I'm going, and then click the options, and then click here. So little tiny simple things like that you probably don't think are going to affect conversion can really do it. Now, the other thing on here is obviously we've got this overall size guide. We've got some general sizings. We're explaining how to measure, which is fine. But what you will see on other people's kind of websites, and you'll see some examples, is they do a good job of explaining where the model is. So they'll explain how tall the model is. They'll explain what sizings they are. We don't get any of that information here. I do like this idea of this true size. So for example, is it small? Is it fairly spot on? Or is it a bit oversized? So that the user can make that decision as well. I do think that is really nice. And we do have some of these credibility building with these reviews. In an ideal world, I would say these reviews need to be right below the CTA to make it really stand out. But it is what it is. Descriptions and things like this are fine. They've got the information in there. Oh, here you go. Model is 6'2", wears a medium. I feel like that should have been more obviously shown, but again, it's up for discussion on there. So let's move on to the next 10 that we're going to run through. So this next one I've got loaded here is Boohoo Man. And now again, kind of the same sort of vibe as looking at the H&M one. These are obviously the more cheaper end of kind of where they're looking at, but there's still going to be some great options that we can run through here. But let's get back to my big list just to start with. Durability is going to be a really key one, right? Am I going to wear this a lot? Am I going to wear it under my clothes? Am I going to wear it for the gym? There's all these potential scenarios of where I'm going to wear it. The durability can be really considered. So, is that going to come across in here? Are we referencing how it's tested? Are we showing that how many washes it's going to be able to run through? Are we going to talk about the fact that it's shrink resistant? There's all of these individual things that we could reference. And I'm aware that a site like Boohoo Man that has thousands of different styles of products can really struggle with this. But if you're only selling a small number of products, you can have these really personalized pages. One I've already highlighted before is overall customer reviews. They're a really great, easy way to build credibility. So we need to take advantage of that. Color preference is another one. So on this example here, we don't have different colors. They're very much running them as this is the white t-shirt. But if you remember back to the H&M one I showed you, we had the option to run through all of those individual colors. So having that preference really easily accessible is a great way to increase conversion rate as well. The next one is availability. Like, is it there in my size? Now this one I think does it fairly well here. So I can click on these different options. Is it available? And it says this is in stock. It's very crystal clear what I'm doing here, which is a nice way of doing it. And actually some will just have them grayed out and you don't have them as clickable. Some will allow them to be clicked on and you can still buy them, but you don't have them there in stock. So there's different ways that this can work. Now, the next one could be considered as a gift suitability or availability for them, right? So like looking at this product, I'm not buying it for me, I'm buying it as a gift. So is it gift worthy? Is it good enough for me to give someone as a gift? There's different ways that people are buying. And obviously from a persona perspective, a mum buying for their son is very different to the son buying for themselves. So, if we want to cater that market, we do need to consider that as well. Next, we've got seasonality. So like, can I wear this t-shirt all year round? You've obviously always got these shirts or particular t-shirts that you're like, oh, this is my summer shirt. This is my crazy summer shirt that I'll have. Probably can't wear that all year round. Whereas something like a plain white tee, you probably can. So when you're designing these clothes or having them on the site, are you aware that these are seasonal and how would they be worn? What could you sell them as? How could that be sold to them? The next one is washing instructions. So, can I put this in the wash? Can I put it in the dryer? Does it need to be hand washed? Do I need to have it sent off to be done? These are things that we do need to consider. And for certain styles of people, that would be, different personas. It's going to be really key for them to know that information before they buy. Next, you've got things like neckline preference. So does this t-shirt come in just a crew neck? Can I get it in a V-neck? Are there different options that I might have depending on the overall cut of it? So again, things that we have to consider. Now, all of these objections that I'm referencing aren't going to be there for every single person. Some people are going to have these views and some people have other views. But the idea of the video is just to kind of show you how big these objections can be. And if you're just keeping your overall website very, very simple and we're not visually answering any of these concerns, then we're going to have that lower conversion rate. So please take this example of the t-shirt with a pinch of salt. I'm not expecting the world's longest page in the world to be able to do this. It's just to give you an idea of how many things can go in from an objection perspective. Next, let's have a quick look at this Boohoo Man website. So there's a lot of contrast going on here, and those can be good and those can also be bad. So obviously the main contrast that we've got here, because everything is black and white, is these red bits. So free next day delivery, and we're referencing the prices come down. So that's good for us to see. There's a lot of black at the top of the page, and there's a lot of black here, which is drawing a bit of attention, but really my attention should be over here onto this add to bag, which does make sense. As I scroll down, again, a bit like I said in this last example, I might quite like this imagery on the left-hand side to stay still, just a parallax, so the CTA or the call to action is always on show. Let's have a quick look at the size guide together. Size guide's fairly good as well, and you can click between these different options, which is a nice addition as well. You've got these things like Premiere, which is good that you can have on here. You can click through those different options. We've got some basic information here, but it's a cheap t-shirt. There's not really a lot of salesmanship that needs to go into this, and I think this is why they've kept the site fairly simple in its nature. So next we've got True Classic that we're going to have a look at in a minute, but I'm going to carry on running through a couple of these objections. So we've got things like breathability. Can I wear this in the gym? Is it going to make me too hot? Like, there's all these sort of options around that you have to consider. And some people want them breathable and some people don't, right? Some people don't care, and that's fine. This is trying to cover for these different potential. Next one's actually quite hard to get across, but like the overall fabric feel. If you can see some video, that's normally a great way of doing it. When you can see video, you can see how the t-shirt moves. It gives you a little bit of an indication of it. That's quite a nice way of doing it. Next one, I'm going to take the mick out of my own clothes that I'm wearing here, but are they wrinkle resistant? Because you can clearly see the top that I'm wearing is not wrinkle resistant, but wrinkle resistant could be another one, especially for someone like me, would be really, really beneficial. So do we want to highlight that? Next, and this one ties in a little bit more to that giftability again, but what does the packaging look like? Does it come in lovely, nice packaging? Does it make it feel more of an event when it arrives, especially if you're giving it as a gift? Does it just come in a plastic bag? And also tying into that as like a separate objection, but does it come in environmental friendly packaging? What are the options around that? Can I pay extra for that? Those can be really, really key ones to certain demographics. And next one, and why I wanted to touch on it with the True Classics, which is kind of social proofing. So this is more than just taking over the all reviews, and obviously they've got 47,000, which is amazing. But these little videos here of like, they're actually there to educate the person a little bit, like, how to style it. But actually these are really nice examples of social proofing of real life people wearing their clothes, talking about how great they are, talking about how they can be styled. This sort of social proofing is a really, really nice way to do it. Now, some people can be allergic to certain fabrics as well, so we need to make it really clear. And again, this doesn't need to be super obvious, but there needs to be a way that you can see what the material is made of, so you can flick through that, you can have a look to make sure those things are okay for everyone. We've obviously got a much smaller demographic that has this problem, but it still needs to be discussed. Right, let's have a look at this True Classic page. Now, the difference with these guys is they sell a much smaller number of styles of products, so they can go a little bit more to town on this sort of stuff. So obviously they do have big red kind of contrast at the top of the page, free delivery on all orders, which is nice to see. We then have our pricing that's been highlighted out. This is for 3 t-shirts. So actually it's showing you that if you buy them at this, you get them for that amount. We've obviously got this really nice credibility building right at the top of the page, 47,000, and a nice easy way to be able to flick between these sizings as well. We've obviously got your find your fit, and I quite like this option, which is why I wanted to highlight it to you, that you can put in your height, your weight, and your age. There's a couple of additional questions it asks you, but you actually get a really good idea about what it is. You're like, hey, we would recommend this exact fit. Whereas what you've seen on some of the other pages, it's very much just like, hey, measure yourself, this is where you are. So not everyone has that information. So we're trying to make it as simple as possible. I also think this is really nice where we have these sort of going to pop up and you can see the difference in it. I think it's a really nice way of doing it. Now, they're also referencing here, the model is 6 foot and he's wearing a size medium. Going back to what I'd said on some of those other pages, that could be really, really beneficial for the user to see. And a nice little hover state so I can zoom in and have a look at them. We're highlighting some of these options as well, which I think is good. So perfect fit, ultra comfortable. We can click on these. We're seeing some of the information about how it's made up. We can talk about the fact that fabric will shrink minimally 5%. So they're being very open with that, which I quite like. And yeah, we're showing also different size models wearing it. They're not actually highlighting this particular model and his sizings, but I think that's a nice way of doing it. And again, if I've not clicked on some of those videos at the top, they're doing a really nice side-by-side comparison about how this t-shirt fits them. And I think just doing a little bit more, really showcasing and selling the clothes and giving some benefits is actually really important. These people aren't necessarily buying a t-shirt because of the brand. They're not buying a True Classic t-shirt because it's called a True Classic t-shirt. They're buying it purely for the benefits that they're selling, which is the fit and the quality. So these are the overall differences that we'll have. So it's a really nice one to be able to kind of have a look through. And I think they do some really nice things there. Now, as I was researching for this video, I did come across this Prada t-shirt, and I just thought this is the other example, right? So You don't need to really worry about any of these objections that I'm talking about if you've got a brand where people are just willing to pay and they know it's going to be expensive, and almost part of the brand is how expensive it is. So people know that if you're walking around in a Prada t-shirt, it's going to be super expensive. But this is a plain white t-shirt that says stretch cotton. It's 630 quid. It comes in a few different sizings. You've got your options here. There's a size guide, which is okay. And this is actually a nice example, at least, of parallaxing. So parallaxing, as I mentioned previously in the video, is the imagery slides, but the CTA always stays on show. It's a really nice way of doing it. It's a really unusual way this man is stood. But either way, we're showing it from different angles so people have a decent idea. We are zooming in so we can see the quality of the seams. We're referencing actually that it does say Prada logo on it, which I didn't actually realize in any of the videos. Maybe that's my eyes. And then we get to the bottom. So there's not a lot of salesmanship on this page. Probably also doesn't need to be. I guess this video isn't for those people though, right? This video is for people who are desperate to increase conversion rates. They're not selling something with this huge well-known brand name. But anyway, food for thought. I just wanted to share this particular one. So this is going to be the last one I'm going to show you from a brand called Plain and Simple. But first I'm going to move back onto a couple of these last objections. So the next one to consider is lint attraction. Now, I know this sounds ridiculous, but for anyone who's ever bought a t-shirt that then just attracts lint, you just never wear it again. It just becomes one of those t-shirts that can't be bothered to use a roller on it every time. Now, how you get this across on your website, these are up for discussion, right? These were just objections that I came up with. But actually maybe showing that it's lint resistant, maybe showing that sort of thing would be really beneficial, especially if some of the t-shirts and some of the reviews that you've had in the past, some of your other clothes reference how they attract lint. That could be a major problem. I've got, a couple of t-shirts, a couple of pair of chinos and stuff that I've worn that, I try not to wear too often because they attract lint and I always have to roll them. It's just a pain. So try and consider little things like that as well. Next is going to be the overall kind of dye durability. So can I wear this? Is this going to lose its color fairly quickly? Especially if it's brightly colored, we might need to offer some form of guarantee around how long the t-shirt is going to last as a very minimum. I think if you can have that and anyone knows they've had a t-shirt and it starts to fade in color, that can be a major issue. So we do need to consider that. And that does really tie in with price as well. The next one, and again, I think people like Gymshark do this really well, that actually a lot of the sports clothing talk about how they feel like they're seamless. So you can't feel the seams on the arms or around the neck or anything like that. So are they seamless or can you feel them or not can be a major thing, especially with running. If you've got running gear where you're doing kind of that motion a lot, is a really valid one to consider. Next, we've got neckline stretch. Now, I came up with this one more because I've got a set of one-year-old twins. And obviously some t-shirts for them have little buttons on the side so I can undo them, put them over the head and then do them up. Some t-shirts have a more stretchy neckline so I can pop it over the head, and others don't. And then actually I bought a couple of t-shirts from certain brands where they don't really stretch and they're really hard to get on and off my children. So therefore I probably won't be buying that brand again. Now, I'm aware that's a very specific use case, but these are things that people consider. So if we can take that into account, it's going to be really, really key. My last one that I'm going to reference here is overall underarm or fit around the arms. So do I want them tight on my arms? Do I want to be able to show off from a muscle perspective? Do I want them slightly looser because I prefer the style? Do they come with an option where I can roll them up and they stay in that position because they've got a little bit of starch to them? Kind of the overall arm fit is actually a really important one to certain styles of people. Now, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I don't know if I covered all 50 there for my list over here on the side. I think I did. If someone counts up and tells me how many, that would be great. But if not, I think we're pretty much there with all 50 potential objections when it just comes to buying a t-shirt. Now, if you're still with me here, the point of this video wasn't really just to explain t-shirts and how to sell them, right? Yes, that might be really beneficial, especially if you're a t-shirt brand and you're trying to sell those online. But hopefully anyone selling anything through an e-commerce store can take some advice from this, that there's so many potential reasons or objections why people don't buy. And that's what we really want to answer. We want to sit down and work out what those are. Now, if you made a t-shirt website that answered every single one of these 50, it's going to be so long that no one's ever going to read it. So you just need to pick your battles, pick the ones that are going to be really key, and then start to visually answer those. And then you will see an increase in your conversion rate. But if you're going with a very traditional, just here's a photo, here's a small bit of text, here's the button to buy, you will have a lower conversion rate, especially if you don't have a brand behind it. So try to consider some of these options that are going into this and see if there's anything you can take away. Now, if there's any other websites you'd really like me to review, or any particular styles of product you want me to have a look at, say like, hey Ross, how would you sell X? Please comment that below. Any other ideas that people have for videos, I'd love to have that comment as well, and we'll go from there. Thanks all.